I often tell patients to stop romanticizing about healthcare and lose that warm and fuzzy feeling, because the fact is healthcare is kind of a dirty place. And many times profits are looked out for and not the individual's better well-being. Now, I understand that many doctors have good intentions, but the fact is most doctors don't write their own paychecks. Most doctors work in hospital systems that are pointing fingers and also are getting paychecks from pharmaceutical companies. In this first article, I want to look at this one by the Defender, and it's on killer profits, how big pharma hoards money and harms patients. Basically, what this article breaks down is that these big pharmaceutical companies are buying up smaller ones, and it's doing many very negative things to the patients out there, to the general public. The first reason that they're going and buying up many smaller pharmaceutical companies is because it'll boost their stock prices. The other thing it'll do is it'll stop competition, and then lastly, it will acquire an innovative blockbuster drug with an enormous prospective revenue stream. Okay, but this is not good for the general public, because what they're finding is that in many ways what's happening is it is stopping the innovation, because they're finding that it's the smaller pharmaceutical companies that are actually developing worthwhile science in drugs, not the big ones. The big ones are just continually focused on their profits. So it's the small ones that are innovating, and then also it's competition that lowers drug prices. It's competition that actually will kind of even the score, so that at the end of the day, capitalism in general can serve its best interest to the general public in the way of health. This article down here talks about pharmaceutical companies often claim that lowering the prices of prescription drugs in the United States would devastate innovation. Yet, as prices have skyrocketed over the last few decades, these same companies' investment in research and development have failed to match this same pace. Instead, they've dedicated more and more of their funds to enrich shareholders or to purchase other companies to eliminate competition. Okay, so these pharmaceutical companies keep saying, well, the reason we can't lower the drug prices is because, how are we going to develop new stuff? Fact is that they're not developing new stuff. The fact is that they literally are going in and doing this in order to have a monopoly on the marketplace, and then from there not lower the prices of drugs. Some of these drug prices are ridiculous. I once had a patient who was on Humira, and he was getting these Humira shots, and they were charging his insurance upwards of $5,000 2 times a month for his Humira shots. Like, incredible how much money they're charging for that stuff. And when you look at the cost of it, it's just insane. It's unbelievably low. But when the pharmaceutical company has a monopoly on the marketplace, well, good luck. Now, another article I want to bring our eyes over to is, are prescription drugs kill us in large numbers? And this is actually published in PubMed. This is a research article. I want to just break down some of the very basics of it, and we'll read through the abstract. Our prescription drugs are the third leading cause of death after heart disease and cancer in the United States and Europe. I want you to think about that for a moment, okay? Prescription drugs are the third leading cause of death, okay? Now, where is the outrage? Where is the stinking outrage for this? It's unbelievable that prescription drugs can be the third leading cause of death, but yet everybody's taking them. When we look at statistically, it's like people who are 55 and older are typically on one or more prescription drugs, okay, suffering from one or more chronic health condition. And when we start getting up in age a little bit, the numbers go up greatly as far as how many pharmaceuticals people are on. And typically when you get to, people who are, in their 70s and 80s, they're on a whole, a kit of pharmaceuticals, taking many, many pills throughout the day. And here we look at the statistics of being the third leading cause of death. Around half of those who die have taken their drugs correctly. Okay, I want to point that out, correctly, because most people would look at this and go, oh well, it's because they didn't follow the directions, those silly patients. The other half die because of errors, such as too high of dose or the use of a drug despite contraindications. Okay, and this is something that happens all the time. When you start looking at the cocktails of drugs that people are on, I know an individual who is a EMS. He drives an ambulance, and one of the things that happens is that when they are picking some of these people up, they want to know, like, well, what are these people reacting to? And they'll go and kind of sweep up all their drugs, and they'll tell tell me that, you know, some of these individuals are on bags of pharmaceuticals. They're just, you know, taking this crazy cocktail. And could you imagine all the unknown contraindications to doing so? And they were all prescribed to them, by the way. They didn't just go and, you know, start buying them and start taking them for fun. Our drug agencies are not particularly helpful, as they rely on fake fixes, which are a long list of warnings, precautions, and contraindications for each drug, although they know that no doctor can possibly master all of these. Now, if you ever watch like any of these ridiculous commercials, they're typically on these, you know, news stations that are spewing nonsense to begin with. These commercials will give you like a laundry list of contraindications or negative side effects to these drugs, and it's actually quite hilarious to listen to them. I don't know how anybody could actually go and get one of these pharmaceuticals and not question all the negative side effects. It's like when the negative side effect is like death, it's something to maybe concern yourself a little bit with. And it's also funny when these different commercials go on and they're like, well, make sure that you tell your doctor that you want to learn more. It is like literally a commercial telling the patient to go to their doctor and tell them what they want to be on. It's unbelievable. And I know many people who literally have gone to the doctors and just said, I need this. And the doctor like, okay, let's do it. Major reasons for the many drug deaths are impotent drug regulations, widespread crime, and includes corruption of the scientific evidence about drugs and bribery of doctors and lies in the drug marketing, which is as harmful as tobacco marketing and therefore should be banned. We should take far fewer drugs, and patients should carefully study the package inserts of the particular drugs their doctors prescribe for them, and no patient does this. Like, no patient does this. I mean, this is something that is like obviously ridiculous, because no patient gets the drugs and be like, you know what, I'm going to do my due diligence because I don't know that my doctor has done that for me. Let me get on PubMed and figure out what's going on with all this stuff. Nobody does that. And the independent information sources about drugs, such as Cochrane Review. The Cochrane Review group is actually a great independent review source that I typically will reference because it's great to see when they do these independent reviews of things that are just common normalities in the United States, and they basically call them just sham and nonsense. So for instance, you know, the flu shot. How many people go and get the flu shot? How many people go out and just think that they're going to die if they don't get the flu shot every year? How many doctors are telling people to go and get the flu shot? This is a prime example. The flu shot has become a norm because people are literally deathly afraid of the flu. The Cochrane Review went and did a review of the flu shot itself, and they basically found that it was useless. They just said there's like hardly any point to getting it. I mean, when you look at the numbers of the potential that it would protect you, it was so low that you wouldn't even waste your time if you truly understood what you're doing. Furthermore, if you look at the science between like the flu shot and vitamin D is far more powerful. And yet everybody lines up for the flu shot. Unbelievable. Now, going back to this article, looking at the Cochrane Review, which will make it easier for them to say, no thanks, okay? So basically saying, well, if you actually educated yourself on the different drugs that you were taking, you would probably think twice about it. And let me tell you, most people go straight to prescription drugs, and there's so many things that you can do naturally. So for instance, let's just look at a simple concept once again. If you have diabetes, type 2 diabetes, most people go straight to metformin, but most people also don't know that you can go and take something like berberine, which has been scientifically proven to work almost just as well, incredibly well at lowering your blood sugar. And most people, of course, don't work on putting the effort into their lifestyle in order to start eating healthier and, you know, ditch the sugar and the carbohydrates and everything else, okay? So typically most people are bypassing the way that they should be going to improve their health and going right to the way that doesn't improve their health at all. It actually just prolongs the problem. It covers up the problem until they have something major, devastating that they have to deal with. I want to jump into another article, okay, because this just, it's interesting, and I want people to understand this concept. This is why I'm doing a channel like this, because I think this is so important. Now, there's an article, and it's by Emory Law, and it's right on their law.emory.edu. And this article is called Thick as Thieves, Big Pharma Wields its Power with the Help of Government Regulations. I want to go through the introduction right here and just talk about some key components here. Americans are barraged by an endless flow of ads that claim to remedy medical maladies with prescribed drugs. The commercials depict productive and happy lives with suggestive associations that human flourishing can be achieved via pharmaceutical intervention. Now, this is such a good point. When you go and watch these silly commercials, it's like, two elderly people like frolicking down the beach, and they give you this psychological understanding that this particular drug will make you happy. It will make your lives change forever. And of course, it's untrue. Understand the power of psychological manipulation, okay? I mean, if they just showed some guy sitting in a nursing home and like taking this drug and he's just like half hunched over, it wouldn't make you really appealed. But if it makes you think that it's going to change your life and you're going to go, pick up a hot girl or a hot young guy and live happy forever, then it obviously is far more appealing. So look out for that psychological manipulation. The appeals are accompanied by an exhaustive inventory of potentially negative life-altering side effects, which we talked about, as ads end with this depiction of relational bliss through the drug use. Viewers hear a fast-paced listing of monotone, non-segmented disclaimers. I mean, it's just funny to hear this talked about because this is something we've all heard a million times, which can range from a modest impact such as slight weight gain to very serious implications such as suicidal indications, which is obviously very, very scary. Research suggests that hearing about the risk of use may increase consumers' trust in the advertising. Sufferers may also conclude that stronger means better, example, helping them more effectively manage their condition. Patients may prefer a name brand drug because medicine may have a higher perceived quality due to advertising and promotional activities, right? And it's basically like, well, these name brand, they maybe make more money, they have better ads, so people automatically say, well, they're better. American consumers are encultured to reinforce their desire for convenience and accessibility, while others wanting their pains to go away. Moreover, they expect to view ads that compel them to want novel products or new applications. When it comes to health, consumers tend to mitigate the risk of taking the drug. I just talked about this. Most people don't look at it. They downplay the negative side effects. I mean, like, for instance, I just did a piece on looking at how antibiotics actually devastate young children, causing all kinds of health conditions in young children. And how many parents don't even question that? They just put their kids on an antibiotic. How many doctors don't even think that these things exist? They think it's just made up. Cognitive dissonance fuels a process of rationalizing side effects as part of the cost of well-being, okay? Very incredible. Direct-to-consumer pharmaceutical advertising refers to any promotional effort by a pharmaceutical company to present pharmaceutical drug information to the public health in the lay media. Drug companies claim that ads are designed to educate patients, encourage doctor-patient dialogue, and move people to take more responsibility for their healthcare. I don't really think so. Opponents suggest that this type of marketing tends to normalize obscure disorders, encourage people to believe that they suffer from certain dysfunctions, which is 100% true. One of the things that happens to many doctors that go through schools, they kind of become hypochondriacs at some point. They learn about all these crazy diseases and they're like, oh my gosh, I got it. They wake up in the morning and they feel a little funny and they're like, oh my gosh, I have this weird disease that only 0.5% of the population gets. They become hypochondriac because they're reading so much of this. Well, when the elderly are sitting there watching this stuff on TV and just watching these ads one after another, what do you think it's doing to them? They're automatically going, oh, I think I need that one. I mean, me as a healthy individual, if I was to listen to that stuff, I mean, you see one of them go by and you're like, oh, that's stupid. Then you see another ad go by and you go, that's interesting. And then you see another one and you go, oh man, I think I need that. I think I got that problem. And I know like 10 people that have that problem that need that drug. It happens to everybody. So the opponents suggest that this type of marketing tends to normalize obscure disorders, encourage people to believe they suffer from certain dysfunctions, and prompts framing uncommon diseases in normal light. When pharmaceutical firms get U.S. Federal Drug Administration approval for a new product under the auspices of health communication, the government enables them to market the drug and create demand where none previously existed. Okay? Now, when you break down this article, I mean, it's forever long, so I'm not going to go through all the details of it, but they talk about, the billions of dollars of industry that are involved in this. They talk about how many of these television networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, draw millions of dollars in advertising. I talk about it all the time that many of these news anchors are mostly funded through pharmaceutical companies. You don't understand that in many cases. These pharmaceutical companies are paying for your news. They're paying for your information. It's the biggest industry out there. They have enormous money to do all kinds of brainwashing, and they're not looking out for your best interest despite that you think that they may be. Direct-to-consumer pharmaceutical ads are a big problem. Okay, I personally think that they shouldn't be allowed. It's just like, when you go and have these junk food companies advertising to kids. These kids turn on cartoons, and all of a sudden they are begging their parents as they walk through the store to get a whole bunch of junk food. There's certain things that we should question whether or not they should be allowed. And then of course it goes on to basically say, well, the government regulations go and promote their wrongdoings. The government regulations are allowing them to do what they're doing. And what you have to understand about this is that these are the most powerful lobbyists. They are buying and paying for your politicians. I just did a piece on Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, and basically how these big companies have paid him off. I mean, and they've paid him off by sponsoring his campaign. He's a governor for the 4th time, and who do you think's been funding him the whole time? Well, it's a lot of these big pharmaceutical companies. Okay, this article is very interesting to read. I think that if you have the time, go ahead and read it. It's by Emory Law, law.emory.edu. Thick as thieves, Big Pharma wields its power with the help of government regulations. What do you think about all this? Put in the comment section below. I would love to know your opinion.